Alright, so Carlton haven't won in a month. I feel this is an interesting quote by Michael Voss pre-game, describing our identity and the downturn in form.
No, I think our identity was really clear. And then what can cloud it is when your ball movement's not going right, it can put a lot of, I guess, a bit of fog over what your game style actually is when you can't complete your plays. A lot of our discussion has been how do we sort of strip that back? How do we get that really, fundamentals of our game style back together again and keep the simplicity in the game? And then we've got to live in, if we have mistakes, we've got to live in that area and we've got to recover it. And that's our response to them. So
when the game that saw the Lions winners by 37 points was all said and done, Carlton won hitouts to advantage by 12, clearances by 8, and contested ball by a drastic 31 possessions. They won ground ball gets by 26 and had 4 more marks inside 50. Brisbane had 12 more tackles inside 50, 61 more marks, 64 more uncontested possessions, and 16 more inside 50s. They had 11 more intercept marks and played on 17 more times. Now, with both teams holding differing advantages in the game, their identities essentially, it's not rocket science when I say whoever could take advantage of these benefits would win the game. Brisbane generated 75 points from turnover and 71 points from their forward half, advantages of 50 and 30 points over the Blues. Carlton were only plus 12 on stoppage scores, so collectively these stats point towards the Lions playing mercilessly and capitalising off of their advantages. The same cannot be said for the Blues, who ultimately lost the game off yet another inefficient and not so fruitful performance. Voss's quote foreshadowed this game well. What's a contested ball advantage when devastating damage arises from stifled ball movement and turnovers running rife? Carlton had responses, but not enough to keep up with the volume of mistakes they were making. As always, in a stat or an outcome, there's always a how and why, which I'll yet again be looking to decipher today, as I note some clear differences in the ways both teams coped with opportunity. These words by Joey Montagna post-game describe the situation well. When we're trying to diagnose where Brisbane's capitalisation on opportunity sourced from.
I mean, their ball movement, everyone sees the kicking skills, but you've got to get players in the right positions to be able to use those skills, and they are all on the same page when they win it. They all get forward of the ball to provide an option, knowing that even if they don't get involved, they're going to set themselves up to then be able to play their sort of forward half press game, and they're just all in sync. They're all on the same page. If they can't go through the corridor and can't go quick, they always have someone lateral or backwards they can release to and start again. And then their hunt.
This is where the heavy reward from turnover in comparison to Carlton, whether that may be in tackle or intercept mark form, becomes very easy to comprehend through their reactivity and through their structure, via movement from players with and without the ball. Here's a good showing of that. When this play commences, Dane Zorko is well off screen. Now, even though Carlton should have taken this mark, pay attention to Logan Morris take off ahead of the play, McGovern his assignment. Zorko is still well wide. Sam Doherty is Carlton's point of advantage here. Potentially Paddy Cripps will have a role to play in getting it there. Well, Cripps is that man until McGovern gets in the way of that exact handball that needed to occur, and it adds an unwanted step to this breakaway. The minute the handball is overcooked, it swings the other way in terms of advantage. It goes straight to a line and towards the Lions' most utilised lethal kicker. Also, drawing in his assignment. Rayner helps this chain move rapidly with the knowledge of where to run, and within 2 seconds, a strong decision to continue to swing it wider means Zorko has space to roam. Morris, Lohman, and Cameron are all perfectly open here. But why? Based off of where we began, McGovern and Haynes, involved in the initial chain, are nowhere to be found, and Wietering was monitoring Cameron. This is the purest example of an opportunity wasted in one direction and an opportunity taken the other way. The reactivity, the decision making, the execution, all strong features. Here's another great example where Carlton win a clearance through Paddy Cripps. However, it'll be the heads up defensive work of Lockie Neal, who cancels out the solid work of Flynn Young to halt Carlton's advantage from a strong area of theirs. When this sequence starts, Dane Zorko is on Lockie Fogarty. Now, the minute the turnover occurs, Zorko is off to the races. He takes Fogarty with him, McCluggage has room to operate, Fletcher takes off, and that draws Cripps. Then you allow McCluggage to take the corridor kick. Doherty's defensive work is strong. Carroll and Chera hold position behind. Meanwhile, Zorko has completely rid himself of the Fogarty assignment, and Cam Rayner is here. This should equal a turnover given Carlton have the numbers behind the ball, but Carroll can't collect. O'Farrell's come up to the ball, presumably as an option to assist, but Logan Morris's impact is brilliant. Who enters frame? Zorko, Ashcroft, and Rayner, all in central midfield on the transition. And Morris's work has brought all of them into the game. Hipwood comes up to the ball as well to shove Chera off the ball, which is massive. Rayner is now open, Zorko is now open, both no longer picked up by direct matchups. Both get involved, and waitering Hipwood's man has zero say in impacting as a loose man, considering Brisbane have just got a shot at goal from 40 out. As we've just seen, I think it's very easy to gloss over the fact that Brisbane are equally reactive when they turn it over themselves, limiting Carlton's impact to punish off turnover. Think here, where a short pass that's not called 15 invites pressure. When the kick is released, it's a 3-on-2, or more immediately a 2-on-1. The pressure act by Hewitt eliminates the first man, but it's the fumble by Ollie Hollands which doesn't allow Motlop to be utilised, as a strong tackle is applied and numbers come forward. Contrast that with this example, where Carlton face the same conundrum after a not 15 call. However, they aren't able to force neutrality in getting a stoppage or having possession. They lose possession, and you see Brisbane's reactivity to this outcome, cohesively working together in their transferal of the ball from end to end, as they win all the crucial 50-50s. Forts worked up the ground. Dunkley and Ashcroft assist to get the ball into this zone, where Brisbane have numbers. Young tries to cover more internal runs as a result. Fort can apply a block, and Brisbane use those numbers to advantage. Carroll's guarding space as a part of the zone, but Bailey is more reactive to the kick. O'Farrell shits the bed, and if it wasn't for an Eric Hipwood special, you're seeing a strong Brisbane outcome. You have Brisbane look like a well-oiled machine with the effectiveness of how they've caused turnover and how they build, while Carlton simply weren't afforded the opportunity to. Pressure's been a strong trait of theirs throughout all of these examples, with 7 holding the balls in their favour in the first half, playing towards their on-field advantage. And it cancelled out whatever statistical advantages Carlton may have had as well. In the short span of 1 minute, you see one team's lack of capitalisation benefit the opposition, playing into all these benefits mentioned today. Forward 50 pressure, uncontested marking with fluency in play, and more inside 50 entries as a result. Zorko's on the kick-in duties again, and with the kick-in being executed, as Motlop gambles that will benefit from a spillage, it has a ripple effect. Fletcher rolls up, it's a 2-on-1. That sustains itself for the next kick, and then the next kick, as Ashcroft goes unmarked, and Fort's relocation sends Pitternet further down the line. Then it'll happen on the next kick. McCluggage's damaging impact draws Cripps out, and Hewitt's now covering the space behind, allowing for Neil to receive a short pass. And with the space still not fully occupied by Carlton, Cripps drops back. Hollands is back on the mark, and McCluggage is just alone, ready to attack that space that still isn't fully covered. It goes to the top of the square. It's actually well anticipated by Matt Carroll, but the pressure kills him. Ashcroft anticipates the outcome well as he faces goal, losing Doherty in a fraction of a second, and he converts truly. Brisbane took these opportunities to gain ground, took opportunities to move into open space with pace, and took the opportunity to apply pressure. Carlton had an opportunity to capitalise on a good transition opportunity of their own, and yet the disparity in outcome was reflective of a second quarter where inside 50s were even, but the scoreline was not. Let's pay particular attention to the third quarter. Now, Brisbane had a massive result to show for their forward 50 tackling, but it was sky high in the third, generating 9 tackles, as we've seen on the previous example. Now, the news on this example doesn't come from the turnover itself, but what occurs afterward. When Zach Bailey takes a mark, and regrettably plays on, how Brisbane prevent a turnover given multiple Carlton opportunities to force it, that doesn't sit well with me. And the implications are drastic. What originally could have been a chance to grow out of your back half, it plays into Brisbane's lap. 4 tackles inside 50, followed by a free for Carlton, but the failure to capitalise is on show. A careless, unforced handball error later, and it's still inside Brisbane's 50. It continues to remain in Brisbane's front half as Darcy Wilmot finds himself free here. Motlop's press means Fletcher moves across with knowledge of the space and lack of Blues personnel, given they're all in this cluster. Such is the impact of a turnover. And it all falls to pieces on the next attempted Carlton transition. Carlton kick in, and when Carlton find some width, this situation looks optimal, right? Fogarty is leaked out, but Curnow gets 0 drive in the legs. There's no assistance coming across, and the kick lacks the oomph to get over the top. The minute Brisbane win the free, they execute 2 kicks that are very reminiscent of what Carlton were trying to do. Remember Montagna's words about needing players in the right positions to coexist with good kicking? They flood the spaces over the top, and every kick honours that, rather than playing into the sitting duck under the ball. Again, you see punishment on the turnover, but it really kickstarts because of the flow-on effect that arises from the inability for Carlton to force a turnover themselves. It's just compromised their ground position and enabled Brisbane's control to take centre stage. And this happens to a varying degree in the third as well. It's all about how you take opportunity. Here's one more example which places both teams side by side. It starts on centre wing, where Carlton force a turnover and see some positivity through Fantasia and O'Farrell. But remember the quote we just referenced about being available for your teammates? Young receives the handball, but where's the block? Where's the relieving handball option or a man running past? It's not used or existent, and it ends up being a rushed kick that does nothing but place Blues out of position. Then we'll see Brisbane's availability on the counter. Hollands is Berry's man. You'll see Zorko take off. Brisbane immediately spread. Zorko moving up the ground sends Chera backward, freeing up the Bailey option. Berry is unaccompanied, and so when Chera rolls up, he's exposing both options to the Lions' attack, and they can get that drive, get it to the back, and this is Carroll's indecision kicking in. It looks like it's going to force that back shoulder rollover, but the dip brings McGovern back in. He doesn't deal with it, and Carroll is displaced, meaning Fort's got an easy look. To go back to Montagna again, there's synchronicity, there's being in the right positions, and really, Carlton had no answer or had any equivalent. A very clear example of a difference in method and an indictment of how opportunity was pursued and taken on the night. And that's a perfect way to sum this one up. Carlton may have won a lot of contested ball categories, but with very little impact beyond the numbers, as opportunities weren't taken to the fullest. Brisbane's numbers, however, were reflective of their scoreboard output, as with every tackle, mark, kick, and intercept, it not only led to Carlton losing their leverage, but Brisbane's cohesiveness had them heavy producers of scores from these measures. What do you think? Was this result more of an indictment of how Brisbane performed, or Carlton continuing to be turnover merchants, as they have been for a little while now? Thanks for tuning in. We'll be back for next week's rendition of Carlton Analysis, but until then, stay safe, chat soon, and bye for now.